The individual, being true to oneself. When we forget the individual soul, when we stop paying attention to the inner life of a person, everything becomes confusing and unclear. Therefore, the beginning of teshuvah, or spiritual growth, is the return to oneself, to the source of one's soul. Returning to oneself leads one to immediately return to God, to the soul of souls. In this way, one will grow higher and higher in holiness and purity. This principle is true for the transformation of the individual, the nation, humanity, and all of existence. All destruction comes about only because we have forgotten and ignored the self. In fact, if a person expresses a desire to return to God, but is not interested in focusing on the self, then this is a fake and deceitful type of teshuvah, through which one takes the name of God in vain. Therefore, only in the great truth of returning to oneself will the individual, the nation, humanity, and all of existence return to its Creator, to the light of life. This is the secret of the light of the Mashiach, that in his illumination the entire world will return to its source. The root of all sin, ignoring oneself. I am in the depths of exile, Yecheskel 1 verse 1. This refers to the inner, essential I, whether individual or collective. Both we and our forefathers have sinned, Tehillim 106 verse 6. This hints to the sin of Adam HaRishon, who became alienated from his essence. He conformed to the opinion of the snake, and thus lost himself. He could not clearly answer the question, Ayeka, where are you? From Bereshis 3 verse 9, because he did not know himself, for he had lost his true I. He had bowed to a foreign god. And this was the sin of Israel, who was seduced by foreign gods, Devarim 31 verse 16, referencing the sin of the golden calf. She abandoned her essential I. Israel ignored goodness, from Hosea 8 verse 3. And so the world continues, descending into the destruction of every I, of the individual and of the collective. Expert teachers come and focus on the superficial. They too distract their students' awareness from the I. They add straw to the fire, give vinegar to the thirsty, and fill minds and hearts with everything that is impersonal to them. And little by little, the I becomes forgotten. And when there is no I, there is no he, and how much more so is there no you. The Mashiach is called the breath of our nostrils, the anointed one of God, from Echa 4 verse 20. This is his strength and great beauty, that he is not external to us. He is the breath of our nostrils. We will seek Hashem our God and David our King. We will be in awe of God and his goodness. We will seek our I. We will search for our essence and discover. Remove all foreign gods. Remove every strange and illegitimate one. And then you will know that I am Hashem your God, who takes you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Hashem. Paraphrase of Shemot 6 verse 7. We have neglected the individual. It is impossible for us to speak about a national revolution if we do not first speak about the revolution of each unique individual. In fact, the neglected revolution of the individual soul is what is truly holding us back from a national revolution. Perfecting the world through perfecting oneself. The ideal perfection of a person can only be accomplished by focusing one's energy on improving one's own individual self as much as possible. Yet, at the same time, a person should always keep in mind that one's own individual perfection will never be completed until the Jewish people have successfully reached national perfection. And from national perfection, a person must aspire to the perfection of all humanity. Yet one must be careful never to allow one's desire to improve the masses to undermine the perfection of one's own individual character traits and actions. First, find yourself. Individuals must find themselves in themselves, and only after this can one find oneself in the world. The community must find itself in itself, and only after this can it find itself in all of humanity. Humanity must find itself in itself, and only after this can it find itself in the entire world. The exhaustion of conforming to the masses. There are certain righteous people who, despite having very spiritual character traits, feel anxiety and pressure within their souls. They do not focus enough attention on their inner greatness. They do not really believe in the holiness of their desires. As a consequence, they are not aware of the incredible light contained in their thoughts. They walk around bent over, with the weight of the world and its cruel anger hovering over them. They suffer immense spiritual pain. All the narrow-minded thoughts of the masses exhaust their spirits, and they find themselves lacking any strength to elevate themselves to the full height of their own thoughts and desires. Eventually, they will be forced to release themselves and wake up from this mental slumber. And despite all the peace and respect they give to the ways of the masses, they must return to God, who is always revealed to them through their own unique windows. Education and the individual self. Spiritual ideas come to build up each person in his or her own unique way. Any form of listening must be used as a tool to build the inner self. The center of the Torah is each individual's personal line. This is what we will be judged on. This is the most profound question. This is our heaviest responsibility. There are some people who have opened their ears so wide that they have lost their inner focus. They know many names, only their own names they have forgotten and no longer recognize. Consequently, all of their effort is for nothing. They have no other choice but to cover their ears in order to block out anything external. Only after this traumatic destruction of going deaf can they return and be renewed. Indoctrination versus education. It is not the goal of any external influence, whether from holy or secular sources, to silence one's spirit and to mute one's independent thoughts. Rather, external information should provide inspiration that one is able to internalize into one's independent self, and through this process, one's own thoughts will develop and become empowered. A person drained by a feeling of laziness begins to think that the aim of all external information is to disprove one's thoughts, to crush and to confuse them. As a consequence of this type of thinking, a person feels short-tempered and lacks the motivation for growth. Indeed, the holy and the secular do influence your spirit. However, when you integrate them, your inner self is enriched. Understanding oneself. Understanding oneself is the highest level of spirituality. As a rule, anything a person learns is always extracted from the outside world. This is in contrast to one's thoughts, which come to a person from the depths of one's soul. Everything we learn from the outside world must only be seen as a tool for reaching down into the hidden heart, the depths of the soul, the inner logic of one's own wisdom. The power of the soul. Every person has the ability to change the world. It all exists within one's spiritual resources. It all depends on whether or not one has the power to reveal it. Indeed, this is true not only for the sophisticated and knowledgeable, but even the simplest person. There is no limit to the power of the soul. It is a candle of the divine in the world. The demanding soul. The soul demands point us to where a treasure of life is waiting. Thus, the happiness of a person is dependent on the ability to pay attention to these demands. This principle is true even when the soul is giving off vague noises, when it is impossible to recognize letters, words, rules, or explicit messages. One must gather up these pearls from the ocean of life, and as time continues, with the help of Torah, hidden seeds will sprout into beautiful flowers that are filled with the profoundest resources of vitality. A person will be able to eat from them and live forever. Each person is called upon in a unique way. All people must understand that they are being called to serve in a way that is unique to their intellectual and emotional personalities, according to each person's unique root soul. In this world, which includes infinite worlds, one must find the treasure chest of one's life. Do not allow external things that come into your world to confuse you. They will not be absorbed correctly, and you will not be able to gather them into your unique life. Those external worlds will find what they need in order to reach perfection on their own. You must focus on your own life, on your inner world that fills all that you do. Each person is obligated to say, "The world was created for me." Sanhedrin 37a. The great level of humility brings joy and helps each person reach the ultimate perfection that is waiting for him or her. Indeed, when one walks down this secure path, one's own unique trail, in a way of righteousness that is unique to oneself, one is filled with the strength of life and the joy of spirituality. The light of God will shine upon such a person, and strength and light will come from one's special letter in the Torah. Stable souls versus up and down souls. God created some people to be straightforward. Their personalities are peaceful. The life of convention and inner stability is their inheritance. Certainly, if they exert themselves in the Torah, morals, and wisdom, they will grow to respected heights. Nevertheless, they will always remain people of convention, decent and well-grounded. The fate of these people is to be immersed in practical work, or at least practical wisdoms. Their moral standards and behavior are simple and hold up on their own. They may never ascend to the highest, most sublime levels, but they will also not descend to the lowly abyss of chaos. However, there is a second personality type. These people never have any rest. They are always in a state of drama. Either they are ascending to the sublime heights of heaven, or they are descending to the bitter depths of disaster. These people need to concentrate on spiritual growth every single day. Such people, when they have discovered ways of life that suit them, will ascend higher and higher. On the other hand, if they neglect their personal paths, they will most likely collapse and descend lower and lower. These people need to be immersed constantly in Torah and self-improvement, ethics and sacred emotions. And God forbid that they should live a life of conventional work and practical knowledge. As history progresses, we sometimes find generations that fit into the first personality type. Their general personality is stable and calm. The correct education for them is the same as that of the stable individual. On the other hand, there are generations that fit into the dramatic and erratic personality. For them, constant spiritual guidance is required. Sometimes we find people or generations with elements of stability as well as elements of drama and unsteadiness. The leaders who are concerned with the struggles of the generation must take care to educate groups and individuals appropriately according to each element. practical people and spiritual people. Just as practical people, those who have talents in practical actions and practical wisdoms, are unable to attain a complete clarity in spiritual matters, so too, spiritual people are unable to completely understand practical matters. Nevertheless, there is a type of capacity in the truly spiritual souls to contain everything. But this is only true of the context of prophecy or aspakalua mera, undimmed clarity. Therefore, only in reference to Moshe it was said, there was a king in Yeshurun, Deuteronomy 33 verse 5. But as history progressed, a king and a prophet were separate entities. Don't hide your unique personality. One should not be discouraged when one sees that one is not able to focus and specialize in one specific field. This is true whether one is not able to go into depth and develop one topic, or one attitude, or one singular type of learning. Sometimes one has a unique personality trait that causes one to be attracted to reaching for the unknown and unifying diverse topics. This type of person should recognize that this is his or her spiritual mission. One should therefore rejoice in one's unique talents. Each soul must give and receive. For the most part, an individual does not possess a wide array of talents. This is because each unique talent is built on specific personality traits that contradict other traits, and so a person cannot be gifted with them all. For example, a person with a great memory does not necessarily have an introspective mind, and a person who has an introspective mind often lacks the ability to remember many things at once. Or take a poetic person who has tremendous talents in music. He or she may not be capable of understanding practical wisdoms such as engineering or machines. And the opposite is also true. A person who has a great mind for numbers and mathematics often cannot ascend to the heights of music. So too, there are people who have a natural desire for connecting to God through mitzvot that are directly focused on God, bein adam lamakom, while they may not strongly desire to be involved in mitzvot that are directed towards ethics, bein adam lechavero. Conversely, there are some people who are excited to be immersed in mitzvot that are ethically centered, bein adam lechavero. Yet mitzvot that are God-centered, bein adam lemakom, and the holiness of faith may not be as strong inside them. In fact, the same natural strength in one's soul that drives a person towards poetry and music is what motivates a person to be involved in spirituality and the honor of God. This is the great pain that exists in the world. There are strengths and talents that are scattered and contradictory. Nevertheless, the path of truth, which is the path of God, requires each individual to be strong and confident in his or her own talents, and at the same time to honor and respect the talents of others. Each person should desire to influence friends and be influenced by them for the increase of good. It is through the combining of different talents within each individual that a society is formed. Your unique connection to God energizes you. A Song of David. Protect my soul, for I am a Chassid. Tehillim 86 verse 2. This is what King David said before God. Master of the world, am I not a Chassid? All the kings of the east and the west sleep until the third hour of the day, but I rise at midnight to give thanks to you. Brechot 4a. Halakha states that people who work as employees are not permitted to knowingly harm themselves in a way that makes them unable to serve their employers to the best of their ability. For example, the rabbis say that one should not go to bed too late at night. Rambam, Hilchot Sechurot 13, verses 5 to 6, Shulchan Aruch Chosem Mishpat 337 verse 19. No one is employed so extensively as a king, who must serve his entire people. How then could King David permit himself the harm of such severe sleep deprivation? The answer is that King David had such a deep love of God in his heart that in the very act of serving God, he felt as if he was resting. His lack of sleep did not cause him any pain or harm at all. This is what King David meant when he said, "Am I not a Chassid?" This term denotes serving God out of love. All the kings of the east and the west sleep until the third hour of the day, but I rise at midnight to give thanks to you. When all of those kings are taking a rest from serving their people, I awaken at midnight. Yet, due to my deep love of God, this does not cause me to feel tired when I serve my people. My inner self is mysterious. One can never really know the true essence of a person. Not one's own, and certainly not that of another person. Not of an individual, definitely not of a people. We are circling around the center of knowing. We are forced to estimate and guess, to look for directions from external actions. But even these are mostly hidden from us. Indeed, just think about all the complex subconscious motivations. And based on these little pieces of information, we try to talk about a unique personality, type and soul. We must accept that our knowledge of all of this rests on virtually nothing. The judgment is God's alone.